Hey guys. Hey guys, what's going on? To see John's on. Hey man, happy early birthday. Oh, thank you, thank you. So we're a little behind tonight, trying to get my buddy Mike's transmission working. So we worked a little late, but we're all good, and you know that's how it goes sometimes. So we're gonna I got some stuff to work on a Corvette that I was working on. It's on the cover screen there, and we're gonna go over that. And installation was horrible on a Sniper, and like I said, we were working on Mike's Chevelle, trying to get his 4L80 working good, and did a bunch of car shows last weekend, and got the red wheels on the Cup car, and pretty much that's what's been going on. New week, we're kind of busy and been trying to get some things going on here, but so got a little late start tonight, but running around crazy. So see, let's show you some pictures from. Let's see. I don't have all my screens all set up yet. But we did go to 2 car shows last weekend. And where are those pictures? You guys probably saw them on Facebook. Hey Rick, how you doing? Yeah, finally made it back. Actually watching live instead of recording. My red wheels, here we are. Yeah, so this was kind of what we started. So it was so took a spare set of wheels and did the old credit card play card trick. Let the air out, put the play cards in the bead of the rim, and air them back up again. It seals the tire back off, and that way I could blast it, and so I used a soda blaster and blasted them. Of course, the wheels were powder coated, so it didn't strip them, but it etched them really good for paint. And then some videos. I need to watch those. And then we painted them red. So yeah, so that came out real nice. Let me get out of here. So there's the wheel on the car. You can see with the playing cards that you can get a good paint around the lip of the rim, but you don't have to get any overspray on the tire or anything. And when I got the new vinyl letters cut, the guy made me card numbers for the wheels, like the Cup car teams do. And then there it is on the car. This was at our Friday night show. I think it came out real nice. So all the pictures on the internet, they all show red wheels. And although the die cast show black wheels and the car came with black wheels, but I think the red wheels make it pop a lot more. So that's what we went ahead and got the red wheels on there, and it came out real nice. So it was something I was really working on trying to get done. So Friday night we had a little cruising at a pizza joint. That was the first night. We still ended up about 30 cars. And right now we're having a cold snap. Us Floridians, when air gets into the 50s and 60s, we're bundling up. So we went in for dinner and we came back out. Most people had already left, so I didn't get any pictures of the cars there. And Saturday we did the Daryl Gwynn show, the show of shows. I don't know, we probably had 50 race cars there, plus about 250 show cars. Real good show. They generated a lot of money for Nick Bonnet County's paralysis benefit, and it worked out real nice. However, when we went to dinner on Friday night, I can't lock up anything in the cup car, so I threw my camera in my buddy Doug's car, and then we went to dinner, and when we came back out, pretty much like I said, everybody was pretty much scattered, and we talked for a little bit and ran into some other people and talked with them for a little bit, jumped in our cars and left, and I totally forgot my camera was in his car. So get to Daryl Gwynn's show, and of course I look in my case and the camera's not there, so I wasn't able to get any pictures from Daryl Gwynn's show either. So sorry about that. That's a really bad on me, but seems to be the way I work. I'm always really bad about getting the pictures and stuff that we need to show on the show. So, but moved along really well, got things going, and hopefully I get the vinyl numbers on the roof and stuff cleaned off the cup car for the roof number and stuff. So get that stuff cleaned up, and that's a day show. And I definitely have my camera equipment with me then, so we'll get some good footage, and I'll be able to show you guys that next week, and we'll go from there. So I guess without any further ado, we'll get into the sniper deal. Yeah, John, I know the rest of the world is probably like, what the heck, you guys, worrying about 50, 60 degree air, but down here with our sea breeze and the moisture in the air, it feels a lot colder than other areas of the country in the same temperature zone. But it is what it is, I guess. So a customer that I've worked on his car in the past called, and he's got this Corvette, and he had an engine built. He had a guy put Sniper on it and do some other stuff, and he's been calling me for a while trying to get in. I just haven't had time to look at the car, but I finally agreed and said, go ahead, and I said, it does run, it just needs a Sniper tune. He goes, yeah, it runs, of course, he was trying to get in the shop, so I got him. I went ahead and got him in, and I should have known I had a problem when he says, well, I'm going to have the car towed up. And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought it runs. And he says, well, just, I'll have it towed. So this is the car. Pretty nice looking Corvette. I'm thinking it's around a 69. Big block. And I guess the motor's been built for a little while. It doesn't look like a brand new build, but so opened the hood, fired it up. It started, didn't run very good, had exhaust leaks and all kinds of stuff. I shut off and I said, well, the very first thing is when you open any of the Holley EFI boxes, there's a pink sheet of paper on top of everything, the first thing you pull out of the box, and it says that the battery cables must be connected to the battery, not to anything else. So I opened the hood, I walk around to the other side, and that's not a very good picture, but this is, and this is a power wire coming off the starter that they cut the sheathing back, put this connector in here, and that's where they connected the Sniper to. And they used, on top of it all, they used this connector connecting to that harness. So, I mean, it was like wrong, totally wrong. And then there's the ground. They grounded it right to the cylinder head. So the whole thing about fuel injection, and I didn't think about it when we used to do the Excel DFI stuff, but fuel injection, ECUs are very sensitive to electrical noise. So that's the reason why Holley did their research and realized, hey, this thing's got to be, you got to use the battery. So you hook the main wiring to the battery, and what that does is the battery becomes a suppression capacitor, or that's probably not the right words, but any of the RFI noise that goes through the harnesses from any of the electric motors, cooling fan motor, AC ventilation motor, anything that's electric in the car, blower motors and stuff like that, they could make RFI and it could send back through the wiring harness. And it's all going to go back to the power wires eventually and into the battery where it'll deadhead. So when you hook your EFI battery cables to the battery then becomes the block. It cleans all that up before the ECU sees it. So I had to go ahead and I had to, run the harnesses. Of course, with the transmission and drive shaft and everything in the car, it's not very easy to do. The battery sits behind the driver's compartment, behind the driver's seat. But I got that all done and connected up. And there's the main harness that comes out of the Sniper, and then it give you these wires here. So I was able to make a connection here and run it back, and got that done. Started up, running a little better. Had some exhaust leaks, so I said, let me attack the exhaust leaks and let's look at the spark plugs. So I didn't get any pictures of the spark plugs, but they were 2 heat ranges colder than they should be. And they're 13/16 hex instead of 5/8, which that's not a big deal. But the thing is, with the headers and aftermarket cylinder heads, I had to machine a socket to even get the spark plugs out. Yes, John, so the best way to do that wiring is you got to just run wiring. So on the Holley stuff, they usually give you a 12 gauge wire, and they'll give you about 4 or 5 feet. Obviously, going to the trunk, you're going to need about 13 to 15 feet. So then what I do is I step it up to the next size, and I make a connection, crimp, heat shrink, and then I run 10 all the way back to the battery. So that's the best way. Whatever, you want to step up, the farther you go, you want to step the wiring to a bigger diameter wire to carry the load. And that's it. You just run an extension and run it back to the battery. Power and ground, because both legs have to be on the battery to make it work as a noise suppression. So that's, that's just, you got to do that. That's the way it just is the way you have to do it. Without doing that, you get all kinds of RMI and EMI and RFI issues. Maybe not noticeable, but if you look at data logs, you can see the noise in the data log signal looks dirty, very scattered, So I found the passenger side collector had no gasket in it all, so I put a gasket in that. Then I go to the driver's side, and I find the second big mistake. So the guy puts this threaded bung into the header, and you can see me zoom in a little bit. I mean, that has got to be the worst weld job I've ever seen. And it wasn't any better on the other side either. And you can see all the soot. So that means exhaust is leaking out, fresh air is leaking in. So, on the Holley, compared to the older Excel systems, the Holley system uses the wideband, and that's what makes this thing do its tuning. It reads the wideband and starts making adjustments. So if you've got exhaust leaks like this and you're not getting a true signal, obviously it can't tune the engine very good. Hey Ryan, no problem, man. I was late to start tonight too, so I'm with that. We were all in this together, kind of thing. We were all late today. So, but anyway, so there's another huge issue, and unfortunately for a shop to have installed this, it's pretty criminal. But yeah, it's just, no matter which angle you looked at it, this thing had exhaust leaks and stuff. It was just bad. So I didn't want to pull the header out and stuff, trying to get this job in and out. So I just welded up the best I could. It's not the best deal, but it's not leaking now. That's after it's ran and you see there's no exhaust leaks. So there's no soot. So, it's good to go. So, so that's nice and good. The weld's not the best, but like I said, it worked. But, so I got that done. and got the car. We got, right spark plugs in, right heat range plugs. I had to dimple a couple of headers because when you put aftermarket cylinder heads with inexpensive headers, obviously you can see by the pictures these headers and exhaust have been on this car for a while. The tubes were right up against the plug boots. I already melted one spark plug boot, so I took a bar and clearanced the tubes so they weren't touching the boots anymore. Actually, all I did was just rotated the burn mark away from the header tube so it wouldn't be a quick signal to ground. The other thing is the car has an HEI non-tack drive in it, so the tack doesn't work in the car, so he's going to have to buy a new tack. I mean, a new a distributor. So at that point, I figured, we could put a standard size points cap in there that fits in there but much better than with tack drive, and then hook it up, hopefully put computer controlled distributor in so we can get control of the timing, and put a new set of plug wires on there so we can get rid of the melted boots. But so I went ahead and got the Holley program, the Sniper. You guys out?
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry. You hand getting that car in?
No, I got the cable. I just winch it in.
Want me to come here first thing in the morning, give you a hand with anything?
That's up to you if you're in the area. I mean, I'm going to be pretty good, I think.
I'll see you like 8 o'clock or so, and we'll get caught up with you.
All right. Cool deal.
Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. Take care. Yeah, so that was Mike and Jonathan. They just finished up on Mike's transmission, so they're heading out. But yeah, so I got the Sniper tune, and let me get this set up. There we go. So let me switch screens here. So on this Sniper, you've got your handheld, and you can do you can write a tune. We don't need to look at that yet. So you can use the wizard and write the tune. And one of the things I've always said is that those tunes, rightfully so, from Holley, they make them very rich. They'd rather, I assume their thought is they'd rather make it rich and maybe temporarily foul the plugs or have a chance of fouling the plugs than have it run lean and burn a piston or something like that. So when I wrote this tune, now it's got a pretty decent cam in it, but I know from doing this, I told the handheld wizard that it had a stock cam. We did the stock cam. We went through fuel only because it's got an HEI mechanical advanced distributor in it, and it went ahead and wrote the tune, and it was rich. And unfortunately, I didn't get this. I didn't save the learn table before I took it for a ride. But let me show you that. So this is the learn table after we've driven it. Now let me think how I can zoom in on this. Maybe I can. But so they use colors here for your numbers, and you can see if you look closely down here where I got the cursor, it's taking about 27% fuel out. Up here it's taking around 20% fuel out. This whole area, when I first started the vehicle, was taking out 50% of the fuel. And pretty much all these green areas is taking fuel away. Okay, I haven't seen a Thunder Max, but yeah, I'm sure it's very similar. But the funny thing is, as I drove the car and I'm watching the screen, and because on the handheld you can look at the actual AFR versus target AFR, and you can watch closed loop and learn, and you can see. And for the first, I would say for the first 4 miles, first 15 minutes of running, it was taking out at least 50% fuel everywhere. But as I started driving it, the numbers started coming down. I'm like, that's strange. It's not going to be leaning itself out. Why is Learn pulling fuel out? Went about 2 more miles, and then I decided to go ahead and, because at that point I had just been cruising, trying to get the, fill the table up. But at that point, I started getting, I made a right hand at a light, and I went ahead and got in the throttle and tried to roll through the roll through the RPMs, and all of a sudden, the screens went to positive. And if we go back to the Learn table, you'll see here all this pink. This pink is adding 50 to 60% fuel. Up here it's in the 70s and 80s. So, huge problem. I wonder if I can, there's a zoom. No, there's not. But yeah, so that was weird. It's like, okay, now why is it doing that? I was making a data log, so I'll show you the data log here in a minute. So when I got back to the shop, and actually the farther I drove, the worse it got. So it's kind of cool because you can use the handheld for diag. So originally it was taking a ton of fuel out, and now it's trying to put fuel back in. Even when it was in the idling area, you can see now it went from pulling out 50 to adding 10 in this area here. So, nothing's changed, so to speak, as far as the engine. It's still running, and the temperature, I got it out of warm-up mode before I started driving. That's when I kind of figured that we must have a fueling issue. Now, this car doesn't have a fuel pressure gauge in it. I did test fuel pressure when I first hooked it up. I put an inline gauge, and it had 60 psi like it was supposed to. And one good thing about the Holley system, even though most of the tables will come up in volumetric efficiency, you can click the conversion, and now it's in brake-specific fuel flow. And I like this because you can do math to figure out what's going on. So the first thing I wanted to look at was what the fueling is doing up here. So it might be kind of hard for you guys. Well, let me see if I can make this a white. So, okay, so up here at the 6,000 range, now this is a 427 with a decent cam in it. We're putting in between 265 and 286. Actually, at 7,000, it's actually the pre-written program is putting in 307 pounds per hour of fuel. Okay, like I said, these programs are usually set up for rich. So if we go, let me pull up a file here. If we look at this table that I use, it'll open here in a second. That is not the table I wanted. Let me switch screens here while I figure this out. Close that one. Let me open a different file. Okay, so I must have already knocked it off. So let me go to instructions. There we go. Okay, so this is a simple chart that I use all the time, and it gives me all my fuel information. Let me zoom in a little bit. So this is all brake specific fuel consumption. Now let me bring a calculator up. I think we might have gone over some of this before, but so this car is NA. So the NA brake specific fuel consumption should be between 0.45 and 0.5. So let's just say for hey Darren, what's going on? Yeah, Control Plus, you're right. I had uploaded the wrong file. So for the zoom, that's, yeah, good point. So the whole reason I like using brake specific fuel consumption is, let's just say that big block should make 550 horsepower. So we put 550 horsepower, we multiply it by our brake specific. And this would be like a really efficient motor. This would be a normal motor. So we'll go 0.5 for a normal motor. I'm sure it's not any high-end deal. And you go equal, and that says that it takes 275 pounds per hour of fuel to feed 550 horsepower. So if we go back to our screen here, let me try Darren's approach here. Oh, didn't look like it wants to work. Anyway, right here at 6,200 RPMs, the tune has written for 276 pounds per hour of fuel. Now, remember, when I wrote this tune with the Wizard, I used stock camshaft. So it just shows how overly rich they write these tunes. So it probably, you know, if it really had a stock camshaft, it'd probably only make about 350 horsepower. But nevertheless, it's very easy at that point to do the math and say, okay, well, this tune should have been running this engine with no issues at all. So now let's go to our data log and open right file. I should have had this done before, but we were working on Mike's transmission, trying to get that done before the show started. So it's running a little behind. All right, so this is my data log when I ran the car, and let's just look at a small section of it. Get out of here. We'll zoom in. All right, here we go. All right, so this is when I first started the car, and it was at full temperature, and you can see it's idling 796 RPM. TPS was closed, and you can see the current learn was minus 45%, and the AFR was 14.3, and target was 14.0. So nice and doing everything it was supposed to be doing. And then we can go over to here. Still kind of the same thing. Closed loop comp was 0, but the current learn was at 44%. And then we started driving it. So let's go here. Still 27%. And the engine's a little bit rich. We're actually driving now. You can see this, the green is TPS. Red is engine RPM. So the engine was actually de-accelerating at that point. The purple is our target AFR. And the teal is the actual AFR. Now, of course, the car isn't tuned. We're trying to drive the vehicle around to get the learn files to, you know, to do what it's supposed to do the learning. Now, what I would normally do, let's go back to here, go back to our tune file. And now you can see that the green line is representing everywhere on the fuel map we were during that data log. And you can see here 2,500 RPMs, that's where we were looking. It was 24% rich. Up here, if we go back to the data log and move our cursor, let's go back to here. Go back to our data map. And this is where it was when it was idling, and it was at 44%. So normally what I would do is I would highlight like this section, take out 30%, highlight that section, take out like 20%, and then drive it around again, and that just kind of speed things up again. Kind of, you know, I don't want to spend all day driving the car around letting it self-learn. But, you know, for the person who wants to do it at home, that's all you have to do. You just drive it around, and then once you get the whole map filled with good data, then you would just transfer it. So if we go back out here now, this is when we're on our way back to the shop. And now look what's going on here. Remember, the purple is our AFR, and it's off the screen. It's jagged and stuff, but for the most part, it's off the screen which is lean. Here at this point, that's 14.1. So 14.1 is right where this white line is. So you can see that this is all way over 14.1. And if we go like to right here, you can see current learn is at -3, and the closed loop comp is at 27. So what it's been doing now is it's having to go back and reverse all those numbers. It was minus numbers throughout the entire curve until we started losing fuel pressure, and then it had to start adding it back in. So the things I wanted to show was how a data log can help you. Now, again, like I said, this car does not have a fuel pressure gauge, but yet when we seen the car running good, everything was steady, all the closed loop and learn were all in negative numbers, which would make sense, and the car is running good, and the AFR is following, and it's not jumping around crazy, then you know you're working on a good map. Now, when we get out to that section that I just showed, the AFR is bouncing between 30 and 14 all over the place. Car's bucking, surging, not wanting to accelerate. So you know that, okay, we can't transfer the data because that data is not going to be no good. And then what the data tells me now that I'm looking at it is that obviously we didn't change airflow. We didn't change anything else. So the only thing that could make a dramatic change in the exhaust for the wideband to read would be fuel. We didn't have any spark issues because it's a mechanical advanced engine distributor. So its timing map is going to be the same as it always was. That's not going to change. So we can kind of rule those things out. We can rule out bad ignition. We can rule out airflow change because we didn't, we're driving it. We didn't change the throttle body or anything like that, so it's not getting more air than it could. Obviously, we want to look at the engine and make sure a vacuum hose or something didn't blow off, which it hadn't. So at that point, it tells me, oh, we got problems with fuel delivery now. And just to kind of give you a little side note, I kind of knew that we were going to have this issue, but I thought it was good information to show. Let me pull this up. So when I got the car here, the guy told me that, hey, the car's is low on gas. Well, so I went and put some gas in it, and this is what the gas tank looks like inside. So you can see up there's the tank, and there's fresh gas I just poured in, and look at the color of it. No, Rick, a bad O2 sensor could give you bad data. You are right about that. But this is all pretty much a new system, and while I was driving, everything was working perfectly. So the sensor wouldn't necessarily die in the middle of a drive. I mean, that is a possibility. Especially if the sensor was really low in the exhaust and was getting condensation. But typically, when you knock a O2 sensor out from condensation, it happens cold start, because that's when the exhaust is full of condensation. This thing was fully warmed up, 180 degrees. Pretty much most of the condensation was gone at that point. But yeah, so there's another picture. I was trying to get a picture of the fuel pump. That is kind of hard to see it, but that's the fuel pump. Very rusty. See if I get, and there's, you can see the sides of the tank. So when I got back, I knew the tank was kind of not looking really good when it was empty, but I put fuel in it, and these pictures were taken after I drove it, and you can see it turned clear, super unleaded into rust color. So what it's done is the gas has washed all the rust off the cylinders, off the tank walls, and it's probably gotten all over the fuel pickup, the sock, and the fuel pump had some rust spots on it. But like I said, I tested the fuel pressure before I drove it, and it was 60 psi, and it went right up to 60, no problem. Everything was great. The diagnostics on this is that the fuel pump is dying after I drove it. Now, believe it or not, I let the car sit for a couple hours, and I just moved it a little bit ago to pull Mike's Chevelle out of the shop. The car runs fine. And now now we got that issue. So it's going to need a gas tank, and it's going to need a new fuel pump and new fuel filters, and hopefully the filters did their job and kept the junk away from the injectors. So that's what we got to do tomorrow. Is I got to hunt down a fuel tank and a fuel pump for that. But the big thing I just wanted to show with this was it was kind of a good case study, if you will, that just because you put a sniper on and it's not running right doesn't mean there's issues with the sniper. We start out with poor installation. Instructions clearly tell you in big black letters on a shiny pink piece of paper that the battery cables have to go to the battery. This technician decided not to do that, and then just picked up a random power wire off the starter. So I mean, that's going to be a very noisy wire. And then he used the ground of the engine block for the ground. So again, that's the battery is going to have no way of buffering RFI signal issues out of it. And then the O2 sensor, not having it welded solid to the exhaust pipe where it wouldn't have an exhaust leak. And that's a really key thing. I've found this quite a few times. We get a car in, and the O2 sensor is working. You get the car running. It's running 14.3. If you shut the car off and let it sit for a while and then fire it up, it'll read lean and then go back to rich again. So it seems to be working properly. Typically, when an O2 sensor goes bad, it sticks lean and it doesn't fluctuate anymore. It'll just go to 13 or 35.2 and it'll be stuck there and it won't move. Then you know for sure the O2 sensor has gone bad, or wideband's gone bad. But I've had this before where everything looks like it's working fine, but you pull the plugs out of the motor and they're rich looking. And you're like, how's it? And you look at the learn table, and the learn table shows maybe 5% correction. That's not bad. That's great. So why are we getting this bad information? The plugs are showing the motor is rich, but the O2 is showing the motor is good. The tune is showing it's good. The learn table is showing it's good. That's when you have to use a emissions smoke machine. You can get them on Amazon or any of your parts stores. You can probably rent them from a local parts store or any of the tool trucks. And what you can do is you cap the exhaust and you put the smoke machine there, and it'll show you. You'll see smoke emit from wherever there's a leak. And I've seen this a lot, where you'll get smoke coming out between the four pipes of the collector, and what it ends up being is when they welded the collector together, a lot of these header companies, especially the cheaper priced headers, they MIG weld all that stuff. And they'll have a pinhole in that collector where the four pipes join. And the weirdest thing is, the first time I saw this, car didn't have an exhaust leak. Never, I told the customer, I said, we need to smoke this exhaust. It's got a leak. And he's like, dude, there's no leaks in this thing. And he started it up, and we went around, and I used the old trick with a piece of heater hose up to my ear so I could use it like a stethoscope, and went around the exhaust. I'm like, you're right, there's no exhaust leaks in this thing at all. It's perfectly quiet. But when we smoked it, sure enough, a pinhole. And what it ends up being is, as the exhaust is passing that collector piece, it actually creates a vacuum and draws fresh air into the collector. It never does make an exhaust leak. It's just sucking fresh air in. And the fresh air goes by the wideband sensor, and the wideband sensor reads what it sees. It doesn't know that it's got fresh air coming in from a pinhole or a header flange gasket leaking or whatever. It doesn't know that. It's just reading how much fresh air is in the pipe compared to carbon fuel, the exhaust gases. So it's just reporting what it sees. it's doing its job. It's just the exhaust has an issue. So another thing that if you have a system, you put it together and it's running, the plugs are looking rich, but everything else is saying it's good to go. That's when you need to smoke the exhaust and see if there's a pinhole somewhere, or try to find where that fresh air is coming from. And if you don't find it, well, then there might be something in the tuning or something like that. You could always try a second wideband sensor, but like I said, if the sensor is moving around, and let me pull up that data log again. So you can see here that the wideband is reading. It's reading because it goes lean, rich, lean, rich. So it's just one of those deals that when it's switching like this, and of course you can look at the TPS's moving around because I'm feathering the pedal trying to get the car to run. Let me get rid of that. And let me get rid of the target AFR. You can see the target is right along the line and just a couple little blips up there. So the AFRs are nowhere near target. And if you look at the RPM here, it's very jagged and spiky, and it's not running very smoothly. The RPMs are going up and down, and my data logger, my brain, is telling me I'm fluctuating the pedal trying to get the car to run. It's trying to die on me while I'm going through intersections and limping it back to the shop. So between the seat of pants data logger and what I see from the ECU, that's what leads me to the point that I can trust. I believe I can trust the wideband sensor, and my foot is telling me, since I'm having to fluctuate it and the car's really struggling to run, to me it sounds like it's not getting any gas. And then it just all kind of comes back to, oh, look at this. And you look inside the gas tank and you're like, oh, look what happened to the gas after we put it in there. And believe it or not, before I poured the gas in the tank, it didn't look all that bad. The fuel pump did have a couple specks of rust on it, but it didn't really look terrible. So when whatever fuel was in there evaporated, it probably left kind of a tan sheen over top of all the rust. And then once that fresh gas got in there, which will work like a cleaning agent, and sloshing around there as you're driving, well, it washed all that off, and now it's dark brown, raw rust. So that's that's where we're at with that thing. It needs a fuel tank and it needs a fuel pump. And I didn't have to have a fuel pressure gauge to show me that. I just used common sense and what data I could use from different sensors and stuff like that. And if I go back, move this back down in this section where we were still working pretty good, you can see that it was pretty good there. Now here I was trying to get, I was shifting through the gears, getting through an intersection, and I seen that it was ticking lean a little bit here, but I figured, well, maybe the tune is just, being I used a stock file that in the higher numbers, I just don't have enough fuel in it, because it was really not running bad. It just was flickering lean on the screen while I was rowing through the gears. And then, get back over here and everybody's happy again. And, we're still at minus 40 on the fuel in the learn table. So everything's looking the same as it did before. So there was no reason to, at that point, think that there was anything going on wrong. Just maybe the map was incorrect. But again, as I drove it farther, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and to the point where the performance of the engine started going away. At the start, when it first was showing a little lean, the performance of the engine was maybe not great, but it wasn't bad. It was still running fine. Didn't have any qualms about it. Figuring just let it learn and it's going to be good to go. So something I wanted to show. Even though you don't have a cable to hook your laptop up to your sniper. You can do a data log. You can save the files, and you can still go through and see all this stuff and use it for diagnostics. And then you just put your you take the data logs off your SD card and put them on your computer, your tower, or your laptop, and you can write a new file. As I've shown in the past, you can do a lot more tuning with the software in your computer. And then when you write a new GCF file, you can just put it back on your SD card, put it in your handheld, and upload it into the car, and you're on your way. So really, really important to every now and then upload the GCF out of your Sniper, Terminator, whatever you're using, but typically those two, because they don't data log internally. You have to data log to the SD card. So use your handheld, and you take a data log, and you update the current GCF. That way you can look at what the learning table shows, and then you can make some adjustments. So if we did not have a fuel system issue with this, let me go back here to our screen. Oh, let me close this out. Get rid of this. So typically, if everything was going right and we didn't have the fuel pump issue, we would look at our learn table, and typically this would be more of one shade of color. It's going to be trending one way, so more than likely it would have been more green and yellow than this blue and pink, which is going the opposite direction. But you would just take this whole file and just go up here and transfer the learn to base, and then go out and drive the car again. And you could keep fine-tuning that until the point where you you get down to under 10% or 5% is even better, and you're done. Because you're going to always have, it's never going to run on 0% correction, because the barometric pressure and humidity and water grains in the air, all those things are going to change all the time, and that will change the nuances of the engine. And of course, we've talked about this before, when you first start your new fresh tune, this closed loop parameters is at 100% and the learn is 100%. Leave that when you're first running the car. If I had turned these down to say 10%, the car would have shut off for not enough fuel going into the motor, and I would have had to have it towed back. So at this point, you want to leave it like that. And then once you start seeing the your learning tables say under 20% correction, then you want to lower these tables down in case you do run into a bad O2 sensor down the road. But when you first start out, everything's new, everything's fresh, you know your O2 sensor is going to be good. Leave them up at 100%, or you can knock them down to 50%, something like that. And that way, you got plenty of room. If they're at 50%, you got closed loop can add 50, and the learn can add 50. So that's 100% adding fuel. So, like we're looking at the brake fuel consumption at 6,200 RPMs, and it's 276 pounds per hour. Theoretically, the computer could add another 276 pounds per hour of fuel, as long as your fuel system could flow that much fuel. But it does work that way. So when you start out, you want to leave those learning parameters pretty high, and then as everything starts coming together and your learning tables, the numbers get smaller and smaller, then you want to bring those closed loop and learning parameter numbers down lower also. And then once you get done, leave them at about 20%. And the reason I do that is there is a possibility, 6 months, a year down the road, or if you have your O2 sensor in the wrong position and you get condensation there, you can knock the O2 out. And then, of course, it's going to skew lean, and then however much fuel your closed loop and your learn tables can add, it's going to add whether it needs it or not, and then it could foul the plugs and cause an issue. So that's why you always want to, down the road, lean all those numbers down so that, just for a safety. But yeah, that was a very interesting project. Well, interesting to show you guys to maybe help you guys learn a little bit about fuel injection and how to look at data logs and stuff and kind of decipher what you're seeing there. One of the things I do when I'm showing somebody a fuel injection, and I can go back and show you guys this too. This is something I've always rely on. Oh, I gotta open a data log. Hang on a second. Okay. Put the overlay back on. Okay. Yeah, so one of the things I always tell guys when you're getting into fuel injection to treat it like a carburetor, because all of us have driven carbureted cars. I think most of us that are watching me on the channel right now have driven carbureted cars. The younger people might not know that, but us educated folk that have been around cars for a while, you can kind of get a feel when the car's running out of gas, or you see smoke coming out the tailpipes. It's kind of rich. Cold start, whether it needs a choke adjustment or not. So what I always tell everybody, and let me see if I can get rid of this all this stuff here. All right, let me go back here. Nope, it's still on there anyway. What I do is I look at this base fuel table. Let's go convert it to brake specific. Okay. So on your graph, the bottom is engine RPM, and on the side is manifold air pressure, absolute pressure. And so we read it in kPa, vacuum, PSI, whatever you want to read it, and it's still the same thing. It's the amount of vacuum in the engine. Obviously, when the engine's idling, the vacuum signal is high. When the throttle is open, so now there's nothing to create a restriction to make vacuum, so there's zero vacuum. So that would be up here. So this top row, you can immediately think of a carburetor. This is when the throttle blade is wide open. So it's going to be main jet tuning. Power valve a little bit in this section, but the top couple rows, main jet. And then this bottom section, let's just go ahead and highlight this. This is basically your idle circuit. So, however angle you have the throttle blade at idle, it's going to be how much fuel is coming through your mixture screws. So, if you're running the car and you go, wow, this thing needs it's got a lean, not a lean misfire. It could have a lean misfire or a lean, the engine's kind of, hesitating or rumbling, and you say, hey, that motor's lean. Well, then you can go and highlight this box and easily add 5%, 10%. You can look in the instructions. You can hit control, right arrow, which is going to be 5% out, or the down arrow, which is 1% out, or you can go up arrow, which is up 1%, or you can use the right arrow, which would be up 5%. So you could take that box and just add a percentage real quick and see if it changes anything. And then if not, you hit the undo button and you go back, and now you're back where you were. But it's just a real quick, easy adjustment, just like if you were turning the idle mixture screws on your carburetor. And then, like I said, this section up here is basically your wide open throttle. Now, I can't draw a diagonal, but it really, more realistically, would be from this upper corner to probably like down here on a diagonal. It'd be all across the top and then like a triangle shape, and that would be your main jet. So if it's lean, you could make where you would think, oh yeah, I need to put a bigger main jet in. Well, just increase these numbers. Or if it's rich and it's fouling the plugs, wide open throttle, you can pull percentage out. And then if you're going to work with your power valve, that would kind of be in this section here. This would be your power valve, because you're off idle and you got the throttle open, but it's low RPM and there's a weak vacuum signal. So that's where your power valve is going to come in. So, like if you're in a vehicle that you're going to tow, or if you're in a stick shift car and you have it in the wrong, too high of a gear and you're bogging the motor to take off, and if it's lean, well, that's up in this section. That's up where your power valve section would be. So that's how I do all my learning. Whenever I think about a carburetor or a fuel injection, I always go back. If this was a carburetor, what would I want to do? And that's kind of how I've always looked at fuel injection. I mean, it is basically 8 little carburetors. If you got 8 injectors or 4 injectors, you got 4 little carburetors putting fuel in the engine. And instead of using barometric pressure and emulsion and air bleeds and main jets and all the other components that are in a carburetor, you're using a computer to make a digital signal at that point in the graph to put a precise amount of fuel into the engine. So, if you kind of think about it that way, I think it kind of makes it easier to figure out what you need to do, and kind of helps go where you need to go. Just like acceleration enrichment is your squirter, your pump jet, your accelerator pump. So you can kind of look at that the same way. It's just a simple, maybe dumbed down way that I look at fuel injection, and it helps aid in the time it takes to get an engine running. The great thing is, not only do we have the seat of pants dyno, what we feel while we're driving the car, we also have, we can make a data log and then look at real live data of what's going on. So, if you're, whatever fuel injection system you're using, remember the data log. Even the old Excel systems and Big Stuff 3, the old Fast, those, a lot of them you have to have a laptop in the car to data log. But if you're trying to do some tuning, you need to get data logging. You can use the seat of pants dyno, but data logging is going to verify what you're feeling. Yeah, Ryan, that's right. I like it dumbed down. You make it as easy as possible. What do they say? The KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid. That's whenever you can do that, it just makes everything so much easier to do. In my eyes, anyway. It's just that's the way I look at it, and I just, that's just the way I attack all this stuff. And after tuning fuel injection since the 90s, I still do the same thing. I mean, a lot of times I don't think of it as much, but I still use the same principles. What's the car doing? I know where I need to go. Let me make a swing at the adjustment. If it's got a tip-in problem, and the main fuel table, looks like the numbers are getting larger exponentially, I'll go, okay, that may not be the problem. Let's go to acceleration enrichment and throw some fuel on it there and just make a swing at it. And if it doesn't work, you go back. And that's the other thing that you really have to do when you're working on this stuff is, hey, Luke Duke, how you doing? The big thing you want to do is, whenever you save a file, save it to a new name. Always, I use dates, and then if I'm on one day, say like today, 1/7/25, then if I'm making multiple changes, then I add numbers to it after that. So it'll be 1/7/25_1, and I'll go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that way, whenever I make a swing adjustment at something, I can always go back if it didn't work. And that just makes it a lot quicker. And then, the ones that you don't work, you can just go back into your Windows folder and delete those. Ryan says, I try to use KISS, but I usually fail. Yeah. I don't know. Your paint and body work does not look like you're failing very much, dude. That square body is awesome. It's just phenomenal. And the chassis on the Vega looks really killer too. So I imagine as soon as you get done with the square body, you'll be back on the Vega. I'm trying to get my roll cage bent up for my vet hawk so I get ahead of you. But yeah, so that's what I want. I just thought it was a good deal to do. Luke Duke says my brother installed a Holley Sniper kit on his AMC 258. Yeah, the one barrel deal, I guess, or the 2 barrel deal, it worked really good. So but that's the thing. Try to when you're driving a car and you're working on your tune, try to figure out what it's doing. Try to see the trends. Trends are a lot of it. And that held true on this car. When I first started driving it, the trends were showing it was pulling a ton of fuel out, which is exactly what I thought it would be doing. The tune should be extremely rich, and it was pulling fuel out, and everything was doing as it kept pulling fuel out. The car kept running better, so the trend was going in the right direction until it ran long enough that the fuel pump and fuel tank issue arose, and then I saw that the trend was it didn't start going in a different direction. It went in a different direction completely, and the car totally drove differently. That's why I knew it wasn't a tuning issue anymore. This is a new problem, and we have something else going on here. Darren says, have you seen the video on the guy that converted his HEI distributor to allow Sniper to control timing? I haven't, but you can do that. You can lock the distributor. The only thing you have to be careful on any distributor that you lock that was a mechanical advance is you have to take into consideration where your trigger, just lost the train of thought. Where your trigger is happening to your pickup and where your rotor is. So when you lock a rotor in, now the rotor is fixed at one position. So to get your timing, you might have to move the base. So you can set your base at so the timing. So you say you set your static timing at 20. So you move your base till your static timing on your harmonic bouncer shows 20. Now you can unlock the static and go back to computer controlled timing. However, you have to put a distributor cap on with a hole and check the phasing of the rotor, because when you look at your mechanical rotor before you lock it out, the rotor swings, and that is to fix. That's the advance, but it also keeps the ignition event happening so that it happens when the rotor coincides with the tower and the cap to fire the plug. What can happen when you lock your own distributor is the phasing falls out of phase, and now when you start putting load on it and the timing starts advancing, the rotor could be in between two towers of your cap, and now you're going to get spark scatter. That's why whenever you make any kind of distributor change, you really need to verify it with take another distributor cap, drill a hole in it, and then shine your timing light in and make sure that the rotor is hitting or pointing at the wire terminal in the cap when the timing light fires. That shows that the phasing of the rotor is correct with the timing. And that is, if that is off, what'll happen is as the loads, even if it's, say it's a third of the way in between two different wires, it may at low loads and medium loads, it may work perfectly. But what's going to happen is when you get the engine into a heavy load, the spark current wants to find the easiest ground. It's a whole lot easier to find a ground to a spark plug that has no cylinder pressure, opposed to the one that it's supposed to be firing that's loaded with cylinder pressure. So if you ever do lock a distributor, remember to check your phasing and make sure it's working correctly. Luke says didn't care for the cheap pump and hose clamp fuel lines with the kit. Yeah, that you got to kind of look at what you're getting. Typically typically with the Sniper setup, I usually only put that on real low horsepower motors. And the actually the Earl's vapor lock hose is actually a very good hose. And if you use the banded hose clamps, they are pretty good. Of course, I don't like to use a lot of rubber, so but on a low horsepower carbureted car, I will switch out short pieces of that vapor lock hose in between the hard metal line that comes from the manufacturer, you know, from GM or Ford or whoever, and it works pretty good. The fuel pump, you know, if you're going to externally mount your fuel pump, you got to remember it's got to be equal or lower than the bottom of your fuel tank. Fuel pumps do not want to pull fuel uphill. They can pull it uphill and then create a vacuum as it runs downhill, and that'll work fine once the vacuum is made. So the pump isn't really working hard. But if you have the pump higher than your fuel level and it's got to draw the fuel up continuously, it makes the fuel pump run really hot and will burn up prematurely. Yeah, you're right, Ryan. I should get into rotor phasing and show that. I'll have to. I'll get a car in here that's got a distributor and that I can punch a hole in and get some video and show on that. But the other thing, Luke Duke, is that if you look at in Holley stuff, they have drop-in fuel pumps that fit almost all tanks, and those are really good. Even though they're using a rubber joint at the fuel pump, it's only about a 1.5 inch, 2 inch piece of rubber. It is a submersible special rubber that's made for that, and it's the same as like an OEM would do, and that is a good setup. And the other thing is the in-tank fuel pump. Holley puts a really good sock on the bottom, so that works really well for you know, one, keeping the fuel clean going through the pump, and two, helps with fuel slosh, because the hydromat type sock, as long as a corner of it's touching fuel, it will suck the fuel rather than sucking the air. So that's not a bad gig. And thanks for the thumbs up, Darren. Everybody, you know, looking for fuel hose components, silicon hose, mandrel bend tubing, aluminum, stainless for cold air intakes, turbocharged piping, supercharged piping. You need odd flanges and fittings and stuff like that. You got to check out our guys at Race Parts Solutions. They have all that stuff. It's the same product we can get. Is the same product that all the guys on NPK and Street Outlaws, they all use the same stuff. It's all really good products, and it works really well. I'm going to show you guys some stuff next week. I got some headers I have to weld up, and we've done it in the past, you know, with some of the V-band stuff. And I think I was talking to Darren earlier. I think they might send some samples of some of their dual seals and stuff like that, where I can show you components for putting different systems together when you're you know, if you're building a turbo system or a supercharger system, even cold air intakes. You guys remember the Joe's Camaro, where I built that dual air intake? That's all stuff from Race Parts Solutions. So when you're looking for components for building parts, remember to check those guys out. Shameless plug for Darren. No, but those guys are great. I get stuff from them every week, and you know, we've been friends for a long time, and they just make great stuff. In fact, I just got this fuel cap in for the NASCAR. This is going to go on a new fuel cell, but really nice piece, all built aluminum with an O-ring base, and they got their logo. They can put custom logos on if you want to pay a little extra, and all made right here in Georgia, USA. So, you know, they make their own fuel filter kits, and they got all kinds of stuff. You should check it out. Pretty much whenever you need to fabricate anything on your hot rod or race car, you go to them, and they've got a lot of stuff on there to help you out. So anyway, it's a little after 8. I got to pull the cars in the shop because I got everything outside. So I think we're going to pull the plug on tonight. Appreciate everybody coming out, getting on the chat and throwing stuff out there. I love it. That's what's great. You know, get on the chat, and if you hear me talking about something, make a comment and I can elaborate, or we can go in a different direction even. That's cool. And again, you know, last week we had the video on Chris's Nova. So, you know, if you guys are working on your hot rod and you got something cool you want to share, you know, email me some pictures and some notes, and I'll pop a little video together for everybody to see. You know, this is like a bench racing deal here. I want this to go both ways. You guys don't mind listening to me talk for an hour, that's fine. But, you know, I'd love to show what you guys got going on too. So that's kind of what the whole thing's about. So anyway, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. All those things help the algorithm. Leave comments. Again, anything that you can do as a response to the video helps the algorithm with YouTube. So YouTube's got algorithms that go out there. You know how on Facebook and anything else, you look at an ad, next thing you get plummeted with different ads and stuff of something you were just looking at for a second. Well, it's the same thing with the videos. So the more stuff you click on and comment and stuff like that, the more they're going to show other people that follow the same kind of information that you get. So remember to do that stuff. Subscribe. It's free. And if you ring the bell, you'll get instant notification. I've got a bunch of videos I'm getting ready to upload. I got a Terminator X firmware update, how to do your firmware update and save files and stuff like that. I've got the build video on the dog box T101A, which is Tex Racing or G-Force, which is nothing more than a super heavy duty Borg Warner T10 transmission. So I got that coming up, and I got a shifter rebuild, and we got some other stuff. Oh, thanks, Rick. Tomorrow is turn another year older. So this weekend we'll be at the Cool Wheels show in Deerfield Beach, and I'll get some video of all the cars. I registered a bunch of our buddies. We put a little section together for all of us that hang out together. So we got a little LPC car club, so we could all park together and hang out together at the show. But I'm hearing rumors that there are going to be over 1,300 cars there this year. They've already got over 1,000 pre-registered. So biggest show ever. They had 1,243 2 years ago. Last year was rained out. So it'll be a really good show, and I'll get some video on that. And I'm going to go in and have a birthday dinner with the wife, and we'll go ahead and pull the plug on tonight. So I really appreciate you guys coming on and joining the conversation. And, you know, we're all car people. We all love building our hot rods. So with that, I'm going to give you guys a good night, and see you next week. See ya.